Nigeria has secured nearly $14 billion in pledges from Indian investors for various sectors, including steel, petrochemicals, power generation, and defense. President Bola Tinubu attended talks with Indian investors to promote infrastructure development, even as the nation aims to encourage investment instead of relying on borrowing for economic reforms. Additionally, the president will be attending the G20 summit at the behest of the host nation, India, while Nigeria is also considering to become the second African member of the G20 after South Africa. This morning, joining me to talk about this is Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO at Shared Dynamic Solutions. Mukhtar, nice to have you talk to us on the show this morning again.
Thank you, Lekon. Always a pleasure to be on the program.
So when you saw the report with the caption, Nigeria secures nearly $14 billion in pledges from Indian investors, how did you feel? What was the first thing that came to your mind? And is that actually a viable way for Nigeria to break even amidst the economic uncertainties?
Well, we've been through this round before. I'm not excited. I want to look at the phrase pledge, the pledge. So it's a pledge. Doesn't mean it's what it's a pledge. So we'll see how that plans out because we've seen the new administration come in and begin to run off things like this. We saw this. Remember when President Buhari came, he went to China, the Chinese swap agreement. They had a lot of things up to this moment. Until he left, nothing was heard about it. So when it comes to pledge, I tend to be a little bit skeptical because they seems to be the one pledging to bring in $14 billion into our economy, and we need to wait. And if you look at the sector that they are thinking to invest this 14 billion, it's a sector that have been brought in a lot of controversy in every area. You talk about the steel sector. You know what's happening there, the Jakarta Steel Complex is still undergoing legal issue. Then you talk about the Investment in Defense Insurance Corporation of Nigeria and DIC. That has been almost like a non-existent institution, and they want to revive it so that we have local production of ammunition within the next 3 years, 40%. So it's like trying to whip a dead ox for me with most of those projects that they are really planning to invest in.
But then, Mukhtar, you may need to agree with me, or you may want to agree with me that a pledge is actually a commitment. And we've seen what happened between Buhari's talks with China and their investors. Maybe the investments that came in as at that time or during its tenure were not as much as investors and economists and even the administration intended or expected. But we saw a considerable amount of financial help coming to Nigeria at that time. But then let's just quickly look at these investment pledges that is coming from India to Nigeria, particularly the steel sector that you mentioned. About $11 billion will be invested. And fine, we know that that particular sector is in a bit of comatose. But then when we have this kind of money, if we have this kind of money coming, don't you think that might just wake up, as you said, the dead horse? Don't you think that might just have an impact on the sector and equally transform the economy?
It will have an impact if it comes. We must get it clear. When I mean pledge is like it says a commitment. I can relinquish on my code. There's no law backing it. We just made the pledge to come into your country. Other issues might come in. Remember, this is just a pledge. There are other details, fundamental issues that need to be dealt with before they can come in. Now, you talked about the Jakarta Steel. Now, that company is undergoing legal issues with the former owners, and the government signed a operational agreement with. That issue is still under legal consideration. So are you bringing in another? Are you going to pay them off because that's what they want? They said they had an agreement with the government that was supposed to last for about 10 years, and the government, within the middle, the government said no, they were not interested in it again. That's a legal issue. So no investor, whether a foreign investor, want to come in when you have legal issue in an investment. So for me, that's a major challenge. What I expected that the president should be doing, even if we can see the steel industry is still there, is untapped, and I know the Indians want to come in and see how they can tap that sector. We should have looked at sector that we said we're starved of funds. Remember that they suspended a railway project that was they started funding due to funding issues, and also has to do with documentation issues or project concerns around the project. I thought that what Mr. President should be addressed in that, look, we already have an agreement for people to build a railroad from Lagos through to Calabar. Up to this moment, that is not seeing the light of the due to lack of funding. Those are things that I thought the president would go and discuss. Let's see, let's not have an abandoned project. You are being, those were a project that were discovered, I mean, that were handled by the Chinese. So since they are not funding it, and you know that India also have a good rail system, you need to bring them in and say, come, can we have you as partners? China's are reviewing that they cannot fund this project again. They need to come in, but you're saying the steel sector, like I said, there's also security challenges concerning that sector. Remember that the railway that used to pass through that place at Jakarta up to Igbela in the Delta State and others have even stopped operating because of security challenges. So there's a lot of things that need to be in place. We need to look at the fundamentals. Put the fundamentals in place, you generally attract investment. But I must give it to the president. They are doing things differently than the previous administration, because now one thing I see different now, they are looking at bringing investors instead of going around begging for money. They're saying, come and invest in our economy, employ our youth. Then you can in turn make profit, and we'll make sure that you are able to repatriate your profit back. For me, that's the way to go. They are now using the resources that we have as a collateral. Say this is the resources that we have, come in and invest in it, pay all taxes, that rather than going hand in hand begging for money for them to invest in your resources, and they want to build and maintain and operate it without even getting anything. So I think for me, they started it well, because they say, look, I don't want to go and begging for aid or begging for money to come and come. I want you people to come and invest in my country. And I think that is very good, especially when you know that during President Buhari administration, we lost over 95% of foreign direct investment. At a point, foreign direct investment before he left was zero. So I think it's a good thing the president is doing.
That's interesting. Let's now quickly look at the power sector. What are the challenges that may be in the power sector too? Because we see that $1.6 billion on one side and another $700 million on another side is what India is hoping to invest into Nigeria's power generation plants and, of course, the sector. And not forgetting that, there is ongoing rehabilitation with the refineries, and that may also translate to the availability of cheap fuel, a reduction in the cost of production. So are there challenges in that particular sector too that you think that the government will need to lay a groundwork to see that it is fundamentally addressed, so that when we have investments like this coming, they can, begin to spiral and change the narrative for the country? And of course, how would that also impact the manufacturing industry and, of course, the business environment in the country?
Good thing is that we have Indians that are here doing businesses in Nigeria. So I think we have a good relationship when it comes to business with the Indians. Even if the ordinary Nigerian would tell that they don't have a good relationship with them, but at least the government have a good relationship with them. That, I think, for me, that is fantastic. But when you look at the power sector, where they're coming in, are they coming in for generation? Are they coming in distribution? Or are they coming in order to build the power plants? And so we need to look at that carefully and see, because the challenge is, if they are saying, look, we've seen your power plant, you've built good power plant, we know the challenges is to get gas to this power plant. We'll come in there and we'll make sure that with the gas that you have, you're able to power your power plant. I think that is a more workable thing, because building more power plants will not help without gas. The main challenge with most of the power plant we have is in the area of supply of gas. So those are investments that the government need to look at. Because like you said, if you have the power plant moving, if you have power moving, then you'll be able to galvanize the manufacturing sector, you bring down cost of production, others. Dangote refinery that is planning for any time from now will begin to have production of steel. Most of the CEO, the MDs are Indian. So definitely there's already a relationship. That shows that they are good when it comes to refining of petroleum products. So are we right? Is the president going to attract more Indians to come in and build refineries in Nigeria? Those are the things that we need. But like I said, I think the president has started well for me. But the power sector, the fundamental issues of the power sector, has nothing to do now with the building of plants. It has everything to do with the legislation as regard gas. How can we break this bottleneck and begin to have power being distributed into various homes in Nigeria? Like I said, if the Indians are coming, they're coming in the area of distribution, or are they coming in the area of transmission? Now, transmission it has not been a major challenge for Nigeria. It has been distribution, because today they say we have about 10,000 megawatts of electricity, but we can only distribute the peak we can get is 5,300 megawatts. How can we improve on this other end value chain of the power sector, whereby we begin to see this thing transmit into our homes? That is what I think the president should be looking at and thinking of how to address, not just how we must go with a definite strategy and knowing the strength of the India and key into those strength. We are not seeing the president talking about ITC, IT, whereby, especially the area of communication, the Indians are they are the ones driving that sector, the IT, the telecom sector, the IT sector. Even in Americas and other economy of the world, they rely on the Indians in those areas. We are not seeing the president talking to them about that, because that is the major driver of global economy, and that will be the large employer of labor, especially for the Nigerian youth who are technological driven. So we need to see them talk about that, attracting more investment in the technological space. I think we must be strategic. When you are going to a nation, you must be strategic. You know, to look at the nation's strength, and you begin to say, how can you begin to bring that strength to play in my own country?
Yes, that's quite interesting, Mukhtar, for you to say, because when you look at ICT, you look at other critical sectors of the economy. Agriculture, for instance, is another area that investments are hoping will come into. Now, we see that the Nigerian government has been doing what it can to get investment or to attract foreign investments into its economy, to actually fully diversify the economy. Now, do you think that this will eventually reduce its dependence on oil revenues? Because we know that Nigeria has this large potential in terms of the minerals and other sectors of the economy that has not been fully tapped into. And we need to start talking about these areas. We need to kickstart conversations around these areas. So when we see investments coming like this, is there any way whereby we can reduce the dependence on oil?
It will, definitely, if we get it right. And that's what we are driving through for. We need to diversify our economy. We need to be earning effect in other sectors of the economy. But like I said, the ICT is one of that sector. We are the largest player of ICT in Africa. So definitely a lot of countries will want to partner with us. Those are areas that I think we should be looking into. We need to diversify our economy. The agricultural sector, you have talked about it. I know maybe the president will be thinking, maybe when he visits countries like Indonesia, Singapore, you begin to think, looking at what they have done, how you can begin to implement that in a country. Like I said, when it comes to agriculture, the strength of the Indians are not in the agricultural sector.
Hmm.
That's what I'm talking about. Indonesia, the strength of the Indians is in the ICT sector and in the tech, in also the refining of petroleum products. Like you talk about refining of petroleum product or building of refineries. Those are the strength, and I think that's why the president is concentrating on that, especially in the area of investment in steel. But I think he should go further and see how we can get one of those big Indian companies to partner, especially maybe in training of ICT for Nigerians, in improving our telecommunication space also. And also of recent, also you must not forget that India also are even thinking of launching space. They've launched their first spacecraft to space also. So also, why not we partner with Nigerian Space Agency, partner with India to see how we can do that to boost our own technological advancement, maybe even in the area of ICT and also using technology to drive our agricultural sector. Those are things that I think they should have looked at.
Yeah, this actually brings me to the next question, because you talked about Indonesia in terms of what sector needs a kind of investments and which partner can actually bring about the dividends that is needed. So you talked about Indonesia earlier on. We talked about China, and we see that the President Bola Tinubu is talking with Indian investors. So now, when we have this kind of partnership with these countries, Asia, Europe and other continents. Do you think that might put a strain on the socio-economic ties that Nigeria has with the West?
No, no, I don't think so. Rather, it makes it competitive. You remember when things like this happened, when China was coming to Nigeria, America were coming to Nigeria, it makes it competitive, and I think it's good because The world has become a global village. You can't be enemy with anybody. And Nigerians have also attended, Nigerian government have also attended seminars that were hosted by Russia. We are an independent nation. We have a right to make up our mind who we want to partner with in the development of our country. We are looking at what they are bringing to the table, commensurate with what they are bringing to the table. I don't think it should be a problem, especially with India and even with China. The only thing the American government is saying is that, look, with China, you need to be careful because there's a lot of corruption. They will not give you value for it and that and that. That is their own, but it's left for us to see it and see how China too can help us develop our economy. When you talk about Indonesia, remember that this is a country that is good in oil palm, and we have a lot of oil palm plantation in Nigeria that have been lying more about. We could also begin to capitalize about that. Even the news we have, it was that the first seeds that they used for oil palm, they actually got it from Nigeria. And even if you look at, we are running to India, we almost got independence at the same time with India, but they've been able to improve more than us, and they even have more population more than us, and they have used their population to be a weapon that they have used to drive their economy. So we have a lot of things in common with India, and we have a lot to learn from them.
Hmm. Now, we see that the president attends the G20 summit with the hope of seeing that Nigeria is admitted into the group as the second country in Africa after South Africa, of course. Now, do you see that happening? And does Nigeria have the might to contribute favorably to the G20 as it also hopes to benefit from it?
I think the president should not go there and be thinking we should be a member of the G20. I don't think we are ripe yet. We have a lot of challenge, an economy that is coupled with effort, challenging an economy that its foreign reserve is less than $30 billion. You shouldn't be thinking of joining the G20. The G20 have certain parameters that you meet. The fact that you are the giant of Africa, the fact that you are the largest economy of Africa is not enough. They want to see how much of your giant and how much of you being gigantic in your continent has brought in productivity in your end result, in your bottom line. And when you look at Nigerian bottom line, what's our bottom line? Should be our FX reserve. But I think now what the president should do, instead of saying we want to be a member of the G20, is more or less to begin to see how can the G20 help us grow our economy. Let them know that it's a new chef in town. Let them know what the administration is going to do economically. Let them know what the administration is doing as regards security. We just let them know all these things. They will generally want to invest in Nigeria because Nigeria still remains a gold mine for investors.
Hmm. Okay, Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO at Share Dynamic Solutions. It's nice to have had you join us on the show this morning. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So the Nigerian government has been seeking to attract foreign investment to diversify its economy and reduce its dependence on oil revenues. Economists believe that investment deals like this will bring about positive development for Nigeria's economy, which has been struggling with low growth and high inflation in recent years. So let's see what beauty can come with this partnership and these deals and these agreements that Nigeria, led by President Bola Tinubu, will bring into the economy. And let's see, maybe it can bring about the desired transformation that everyone is actually hoping for. A break will do here. And when we return, we'll look through international business stories.